Advent Week 3, Practicing Joy. Advent is a time of waiting, of longing, of preparing for the new thing God is about to do among us. In the third week of Advent, we pause from the more somber mood of Advent and focus on the theme of joy, a countercultural thing to do in the midst of a pandemic right now. Because the truth is sometimes we don't feel joyful. We forget that we are a part of God's work in the world, and our hearts grow heavy with sadness, disappointment, anger, and even boredom. But as people of faith, our joy is not tethered to circumstances, but grounded in God and the knowledge that God is making all things new. Like Mary, we can sing, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior." Luke 1:47. Our Christian faith has a striking way of finding joy even in the most difficult of circumstances. That doesn't mean that we deny the evil and brokenness of our world, but it does mean we choose to see a wider wisdom, a deeper truth, and a mightier plan that God is working out. We see God's joy breaking into the present moment and showing us the path forward. This week's Advent devotionals will reflect on how we are invited to practice joy in this season of waiting and preparing for Christ's birth. How do we keep choosing joy when life is so hard? When life is really hard? What does a deep-seated and gritty joy look like right now, with so much loneliness and suffering and anxiety and fear? In the Gospel of Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7, we hear the beloved and family and familiar Christmas story. Mary and Joseph are called back to Bethlehem for the Roman census. It would not be a pleasant journey for Mary, to say the least. She is 9 months pregnant and an 75-mile trip. When they finally arrive in Bethlehem, all the hotels and Airbnbs are full. So they end up in a stable, with the animals, and it's there of all places that Jesus is born. Despite the fact that none of this was in Mary's birth plan, she and Joseph are overjoyed to meet their son. Now listen to Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that the world should be registered. This is the first registration and taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. Friends, this Advent, may the light of joy brightly shine brightly through us.